we're just going to dive right in, and we'll start with Jack Smith. I'm not a big fan of congressional hearings because I find that most members are just there to make video clips and not really do anything legislative or get to the bottom of anything. Did either of you guys watch the hearing today at all?
I watched some of the clips, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
didn't see anything too,
Okay.
like you said, nothing too
Yeah.
educational there.
Congressman Graves, did you watch it all?
I just watched some of the clips as well.
Okay. Here's my first question. If you were explaining to a civics class of, let's say, ninth graders, and somebody raised their hand and said, Congressman, what was the point of that hearing? What was the point of calling Jack Smith before Congress? Congressman Graves, you first. What would you tell a ninth grader of why they called a former prosecutor whose business is done before Congress?
I took a 10th grade class yesterday, so I'm in the right mindset.
Okay, good.
Mark, I think what I would say is that under the previous administration, there was a prosecutor that was looking at some of the actions of President Trump, and that some members of Congress believed that this prosecutor went too far, that he went out of bounds, that he crossed lines, and that's what this hearing was about. To look into those allegations, to learn more, and to figure out if the prosecutor did cross lines.
Okay, Congressman Cunningham, how do you go ahead and annotate your colleague's explanation?
No, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway.
Just say amen.
Yeah, just saying that.
just give my stamp of approval
Yeah.
to whatever Garrett says. I mean, look, the biggest takeaway that I saw from the headlines and the clips was related to the phone records. I think if you'd asked the average person who had any awareness of the phone records, most people would have thought that they went after the transcripts or the recordings or tapped the phone lines. And I think what came out today and what was reiterated was that it was just the actual phone logs, not the actual substance of the call. So, I mean, in that respect, it may have deflated some of those claims on that side.
Okay. Republican members mostly focused on not the substance of the investigations, but because remember, Smith investigated the president in two separate venues and two separate sets of charges, but on some of the procedural things. There's a lot of questioning about was he actually sworn in for the office and how he spent the money, the millions that he spent. Democrats mostly focused on trying to raise up the charges against President Trump and the prosecutor. Here's a bit. We could show you hours upon hours because the hearing lasted hours upon hours. Here's one representative clip. This would be number 3, Sam. Jack Smith is stating, as any prosecutor who's brought an indictment would, that he had his defendant guilty and dead to rights. Here's Jack Smith, number 3, please.
During my tenure as special counsel, we followed Justice Department policies. We observed legal requirements and took actions based on the facts and the law. I made my decisions without regard to President Trump's political association, activities, beliefs, or candidacy in the 2024 election. President Trump was charged because the evidence established that he willfully broke the law, the very laws he took an oath to uphold. Grand juries in 2 separate districts reached this conclusion based on his actions, as alleged in the indictments they returned. Rather than accept his defeat in the 2020 election, President Trump engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the results and prevent the lawful transfer of power. After leaving office in January of 21, President Trump illegally kept classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago social club and repeatedly tried to obstruct justice to conceal his continued retention of those documents. Ballroom and a bathroom. As I testify before the committee today, I want to be clear. I stand by my decisions as special counsel, including the decision to bring charges against President Trump. Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity. If asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or a Republican. No one should be above the law in this country, and the law required that he be held to account, so that is what I did. To have done otherwise on the facts of these cases would have been to shirk my duties as a prosecutor and as a public servant, of which I had no intention of doing.
Before I throw it over to Robbie for questions for the congressman, I'll just remind everybody, Jack Smith investigated the president in the Washington, D.C. venue for actions related to January 6th, and he investigated him in Florida for actions related to the documents case out of Mar-a-Lago. Robbie.
Yeah, look, I don't think, to use your analogy, what would the 10th graders learn from this hearing? Obviously, frankly, the 10th graders probably have something to tell the rest of us about the purpose of these hearings, which is to create content on social media, which is all our legislators view as their role these days. They're not doing any real legislating. Nothing beyond the performative will come out of this. This is about people creating clip reels for their supporters on social media and maybe even in their districts. As to the substance of it, I like many people on the right, civil liberties-minded people on the right, were alarmed by the level of, by looking into seeing congressmen, what their conversations with Trump were like during that day. That's very big government-y for me. But then I also know Republicans would never vote to take that power away from law enforcement officers. And when this kind of thing comes up for a vote, FISA, for instance, it's 400 to 1 with like Thomas Massey dissenting every single time, because they're mad about it when it's used against them, but they're not mad about it when it's used just generally against the American people in the context of prosecution. So I'm not, Jack Smith's not a guy I have a lot of sympathy for, a lot of enthusiasm for. I think he was, mustering the powers of the state to go after political opposition, but it's very par for the course, and you have to kind of have a selective blinders approach to how these kinds of prosecutions go, to say that, Donald Trump was uniquely or only person ever treated like this. That's a limited perspective, would be my response.
I want to move on because there's a lot of other topics, Congressman, I want to hear from you on, but let me just ask you, and maybe this is an unanswerable question in these polarized times. Congressman Graves, how will history view Jack Smith and his prosecutions of Donald Trump, do you think?
Look, I think one of the real things that's going to be historic that folks will remember is the fact that he subpoenaed the phone records of the Speaker of the House, went before a judge and did not disclose that these were members of Congress, and then put a non-disclosure order on. I think you're going to see a lot of scrutiny on that continue. I think that it absolutely crossed the line. And I think that's going to be one of the bigger issues that's remembered.
Congressman Cunningham.
I guess it depends. I guess it depends who the winners are and who write the history books, right?
Yeah.
I think the thing that stands out from my point is what happened with the phone calls into Georgia and finding more votes. I think the documents, you got Biden, who had the circumstances were different on that event, but there was a lot happening, and to me, that's probably the one that stands out the most.
Yeah. All right. Cozy Earth, one of our all-time great sponsors, will give you, the American people and fans of Two-Way, 20% off if you go to cozyearth.com right now and use the promo code Two-Way. They will give you 20% off. Start the year off right and give your home the luxury it deserves. Make home the best part of your day. This is 20% off everything: sheets, towels, bubble cuddle blanket, pants, shirts, everything. Right now, 20% off. And there's lots to choose from. Heard again today from two of you, happy customers who asked me again for very micro advice about what to buy regarding the pants. And I'll give the same advice. I've got 3 different of the pants. Get them all. Get any of them. They're all great. And again, the other advice I give and heard from somebody today, yes, the bubble cuddle blanket can be washed. And yes, you'll want to buy 2 if you have a small child or a pet, because they will commandeer. If you only buy 1, once you take it out of the box, it'll be the last you see of it. CozyEarth.com, promo code Two-Way, 20% off everything on the site.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the Two-Way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two-Way tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.